Hello, friends. Welcome to our sixth, I don't know, some episode of Mavs Party, because the Mavericks are now 6-1. We've not yet had to do a group therapy because I wasn't here for the only time the Mavs lost this year, which is really awesome. Dallas is now 6-1 after defeating the Orlando Magic 117-102, a game where they somehow only allowed 36 points from the Magic in the second half. Those of you who've been watching the other show or paying any attention to my social feeds know that I had a kid on Thursday, my wife and I second. So that was why I took a couple of days away. But because I am a lunatic, I am back on here live talking basketball. Also, it helps that it's only 10 o'clock because the Mavericks played a game that started at 6 p.m. I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end of the show because I'm still trying to figure out what my regular availability is going to be, but I want to do as many of these shows as possible. So for those of you who might be joining for the first time or joining whenever, one of the things that we want to do is have these participation shows from other Dallas Mavericks fans, because that is what I am. We've been doing them for quite a long time in different mediums, usually over audio only, but I got pushed into video last year whenever Spotify Live decided to fold, which was real neat. But we're here on YouTube now. Josh and I have been doing all of our shows live, but we're trying to do these at least after every game, win or lose. Sometimes the losses are a little more funny just because people are venting. But we're having a good time here live. If you want to click on the link, it's in the comments. That'll allow you to come up and talk a little bit about what you've seen either tonight or in the past couple of games, since I didn't host one Friday for the Denver loss or last night following the Hornets win. Sorry about that, by the way. Probably should have given people more of an update, but my wife and I just decided to kind of keep it quiet until it happened, because then we just didn't want to have to deal with everybody asking what was going on. So coming up first, we have David down there who's going to be coming up on joining me here. So David, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Hey Kurt, doing great, man.
You're muted. There we go.
Yeah, my audio, my feed may be a little choppy, so if it is, I'll just go in the back and let everyone else jump in. But just wanted to say congratulations again, man, on the new edition.
Thank you, appreciate that. What's going on in your head regarding the Mavericks?
I just, I want to follow up with my comment thread that, the pundits were right. Kyrie and Luka have no chemistry. The fourth quarter sealing the win with that like MLB like cross court throw to Kai for the three, and then Kai getting the steal and running the break on the other end and dropping off a perfect pass for Luka to get a three, and both cheering. Like, that's not chemistry. I know
they don't like each other.
That's not it.
They
don't have it. They hate each other, really. And then, like, it's all for show. Yeah. Derek Lively, so far this season, has just been, a massive disappointment having to start, and play extra minutes over Dwight Powell. It's tough. It's tough to watch right now. Everything that we saw last season was indicative of this season. All the panic button was correct. They should just trade Luka now at this point. That's kind of what I'm feeling. So, but in all seriousness, no, I just this game was awesome. The fact that they were coming off a back-to-back against Charlotte, and last year to me, Charlotte felt like the nail in the coffin. The back-to-back like games that we had against Charlotte, if you remember, like those were just like crippling losses at the end of the season. So seeing them not only take care of business yet again the other night, but then like having a comfortable glide path to a closeout. Like, it was still kind of a game with like 5 minutes left, but that last 5 minutes was just all Dallas. Like, they just, to the point that their coach was getting teed up. So I'm loving what I'm seeing. Being 6-1 feels amazing. And if it wasn't for that one quarter of Denver, I really have like nothing to panic about for the most part right now. Like that, seeing what that Denver Nuggets team can do just shows like what a championship team looks like compared to where we're at. But we have a lot of room to grow, and every team in the West should be kind of a little bit nervous when they see us on the schedule now.
So it's funny. I have a friend, and maybe he'll join us in here one night. Everybody that spends any time on Twitter knows who he is. HP Basketball, Hardwood Paroxysm. His name's Matt Moore. He spends his real job is he works for the Action Network at a betting site, and he was telling me over the summer that his model, sort of the data models that that he put in, showed the Mavericks as being like a top 3 seed, and he just couldn't reconcile it with what he saw last year. But the data was telling him that all the same. And he got a little sassy with me tonight because he's just sitting there. He's, the Mavericks aren't this good. And I said, I know they're not this good, which is what makes these wins are pretty interesting because, like you said, they have a lot of room to grow. So what if they become this good? Notching these wins while they're sort of, figuring things out is so damn important, because that way, if they have injuries or they stumble a little later in the year, you can kind of deal with it a little better than last year where they needed wins. They just couldn't find one.
Yeah. Well, and I'm still wondering, like, the moves they made in the offseason still leave a lot of room for them to do something else this year if they feel they need to. So I was curious what your thoughts were. I jumped in last, I think, right before the little man showed up and after the Chicago game. But I just kept thinking, if we had some way of like being able to pull the trigger for like a DeMar DeRozan as like an extra piece, like to just like really, because like Denver's got so many like near all-star players like Michael Porter Jr. and the rest, and Gordon, and so many other teams in the West are just stacked. Phoenix, LA, and Warriors, everybody. So I was just curious, like, if you like, is there anybody that you would love to see, like realistically, potentially come onto this team, or are you just too happy with the way things are and like would not change?
Oh, they need another big man. They need another big man. So Clint Capella is still who I would target. Clint Capella, in my opinion, he might be 29 or 30, but big men age like bananas left on the countertop, where all of a sudden they're just toast. And
yeah,
I think he'd be the kind of guy you just go get and maybe eat a year or two of his deal, even though he's not great. But if you play he and Lively as like a 48-minute combo at center, you feel pretty good about that, with the ability to go super small with Grant at 5. That's what I would be kind of very interested in, is another really reasonable big man. I don't think you need another scorer, because you need guys who I doubt Indiana is going to move him just because of how potent their offense is, but I still secretly pine for the Buddy Hield of it all, because he's a better shooter than Tim Hardaway. Tim Hardaway is a more willing shooter than anyone else I've ever seen in my entire life, but the ability to shoot is something different. Tim, it really comes and goes. When Tim's great, he's great, but it's just like somebody else that could knock down shots. That would be interesting to me too, but it's got to be somebody that can just catch and shoot, not somebody that needs the ball, so to speak.
Yeah, well, that's the other interesting thing. We've been playing a lot of minutes for Tim, and I'm kind of surprised. I really thought maybe Seth Curry would see some more minutes, but I guess Kid probably wants the larger, the size for the defense. But I mean, I was really happy with getting Seth back for like the 18th time, just because, he's actually a sniper. And I felt like that was the one thing we really missed. I don't know how many games I watched last year where Bullock went, like 0 for 20, it felt like every corner three was just clank, clank, clank. So seeing like between what Grant Williams is able to do right now and what Tim Hardaway has been able to do, and then Luka has just been magnificent from beyond the arc so far. It's been exciting. The one last thing I just wanted to comment on, and in Chicago, and again against the Chicago Bulls, there was a moment where Maxey kind of got injured and he like gimped off the floor. I'm not even sure if the cameras really caught it. And then like 5 minutes later, Kid put him back in the game. And I like started losing my mind. The guy next to me was like, wait, is this like, am I next to the crazy fan today? Because I was like, does anyone else have eyes? He just limped off the floor and he's back in the game. He immediately just
we know why now though, right? You know what happened.
Yeah. He's dislocated. Yeah, he like dislocated a toe or something, right?
They probably didn't understand that he dislocated the toe.
Yeah.
So gross.
But like he like gimped off the floor and they waited like 5 minutes. And I was talking with a buddy of mine about two things. So that is in relationship to the fact that like they didn't rest Luka tonight, and I get the feeling seeing some YouTube videos on this from like AM Hoops and some other guys that make some really decent, and like Jimmy High Roller is another one I like.
Oh yeah,
talking about their like load management is like a lie, right? Like it's like a failed experiment. And so the fact that Luka actually played tonight to me was heartening, that like maybe they're realizing like sitting out entire games and like coddling these stars a little bit is different than being smart and not putting them back in right after they've apparently injured themselves, which we actually did. But
we'll see with that. I mean, I understand why you feel that way, but I think with something as weird as a toe injury, I almost promise you Maxey was like, I'm fine, I need to go back in. And then he got back out there and it was like, I'm sure every parent, every man, every person has likely stubbed the shit out of one of their toes at one point in time. I can't imagine how uncomfortable a dislocated toe is. Like just how weird
that's gotta
that
be a
would
nightmare.
feel.
Yeah, that's true. That's fair. I mean, it's like not like he was like down like clutching an ankle and had to be like
Yeah, right.
But
it was so bizarre to watch. Where it's like, what is happening? My aunt was watching with us when that happened, and she was like, "What did he do?" And I'm like, "I don't know. It's Maxey. His leg could fall off, and I wouldn't be shocked."
I thought somebody had maybe stepped on it. Like I didn't even see what like the how it happened.
I think that might have been what happened.
Okay. Because like he just, it was like so all of a sudden, and then all of a sudden, like all of it, then he was back in the game. And I was like, why is the guy that just limped off the floor right back in the game? And of all people, Maxey, I was like he's not the most mobile guy anymore. So anyway, I was glad to they see that they didn't sit Luka tonight, because that was my biggest fear, is like they were gonna like keep playing, you know, like load management stuff. It's like, get rid of that crap. If guys are healthy, you got to play them. Like they are here to play. Like, so anyway, that was my final thought. I wasn't sure if you had any takes on load management or anything, but that was,
I do.
That was kind of
I'll riff here in a second. Thank you so much for joining us, David.
Yes, sir.
All right, we'll talk soon. My sort of thoughts on load management. Josh Bowe and I sort of disagree on this. It's pretty entertaining, I think, because he and I get into these spats over over our Slack about it. I think American players in particular have, and there's an article about this several years ago on ESPN. There's so much overuse. These you see this AAU tournaments, guys playing 5, 6, 7 games in a weekend. I think that there's a real injury. These guys are basically ripe for injury. It's why you see a lot of American players that are just sort of not in the best of shape by their mid-20s, where they're having to rest already. Luka's not in that camp. He's played a ton of basketball the last several years, but it's not quite, I played, from the age of 13 on. He played 8 games every weekend for, the better part of 5 years. European basketball is just different. So I have less concerns about Luka. I am glad that the NBA is pushing this sort of stuff, because you very much want people who, we're all diehard lunatics, but if the game's to grow, you want to have casuals tuning in. So that's sort of my thought. All right, Sam is coming up next. Sam has been waiting. He was our second guest down there in the chat. Sam, how you doing? Welcome. What's going on?
Static that the Mavs are on a roll. Even though that Nuggets game was, I mean, I went into it thinking if we're going to lose a game, it's going to be against the Nuggets, but, trying to stay positive through the game. But, it was great to see them play really well against Orlando Magic. I was having a conversation with a friend, and for the past 2 games, we just kind of kept going back and forth and just saying, these are the type of games that the Mavs would have lost last season. Mm-hmm. And so seeing them kind of come in and kind of just bringing it home, especially with so many games being, clutch games and kind of coming down to the wire, which kind of goes towards my first point, which is they have to do better on defense in the first half. They can't let the game slip away like that, because I think if that had not been the case against the Nuggets, I think they would have stood a better chance going into the fourth quarter, and potentially it would have been a much closer game than what it was at the end of the game.
The defensive woes in the first half are something that I don't know how to make sense of, because I keep expecting the Mavericks to get blown out, and it hasn't happened yet. The clutch time element that you talked about, I think, is very interesting to me, because I'd be kind of more curious. I know there's a different clutch time stat where it's like under 3 minutes. if it's 5 points within 5 minutes, yeah, that's going to happen. But like, let's look at the past few Maverick scores here. You know, the Hornets aren't necessarily a great example, but there's at least 2 games where the Mavericks ended up winning by a margin that was pretty comfortable. You know, tonight they win the game by 15 points, but at one point in time that was a clutch win. And so it's just, I feel like the clutch stats can be a little bit misleading. You know, they have played every single one of their wins has been a clutch time game, but let's see here. So we got the Hornets, yes. The Bulls game, like they pulled away from the Bulls. They pulled away from the Grizzlies. You know, the Nets and the Spurs and the Hornets games are like the 3 where they were like real, like I was nervous. Whereas those other 3 games at this point, like we knew with like 3 minutes to go, the Mavericks had a pretty good chance of winning that. So those games feel a little better to me. So it's like the clutch time thing goes both ways, where I think it's a little bit overemphasized, but I'm glad that they're pulling through all the same. The defensive stuff, I have no idea other than, dear Mavericks, please try harder earlier, please.
Yes. The other big thing that I've noticed is just like Derek Jones Jr. has really outplayed his contract coming in on a vet minimum. Like, and I get it's only been 7 games now, but still, for a guy that is making vet minimum and was the last player to get signed onto the team, like just on defense alone, I mean, the guy is killing it. And then just being able to go up and be a spot up shooter when needed to in moments where we really need someone to come in and just score the ball. That's been a great signing, just especially from someone that I don't think a lot of people were expecting much out of.
I mean, I certainly didn't. I wanted him to be kind of a competent player off the bench to get, you know, maybe play like 40 games. And the fact that he started, it's pretty amazing. I'm delighted.
And then just, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I did have a couple more questions for you.
Go right ahead.
Like with Powell and Lively going into foul trouble in the first half of this game, I just kept scratching my head as to why Holmes wasn't being even just put in for a stopgap for just the last few minutes into the first half. I don't know what's going on there. I'm not really sure why he's not really getting any minutes. I mean, I haven't seen anything from a health issue standpoint. It just seems like kid isn't playing him. And I'm curious to see if it's a chemistry thing since he is newer to the team. But at the same time, you're seeing Derek Jones Jr.
Right.
getting a ton of minutes. And I'm just like, and even on the play-by-play today, they kept saying, well, we only have 2 big men on the lineup with Maxey out. And I'm just like, Holmes is there. What are you guys talking about? There's a third big that's sitting on the bench that just isn't being played for some reason or another.
Yeah, I don't really have any good theories. Mark Cuban commented over the summer that he thought specifically that Holmes would be a good acquisition. Bob Sturm of the Ticket here in Dallas was pretty insistent that Holmes was going to be functional. We used to have a Mavs Moneyball writer that 2 years ago was begging the Mavericks to sign him just because the pick and roll combination with Lucas is sort of weird push shot. My only thought is that he must not show any ability to anchor a defense, and that if he's that washed, then that's why the Mavericks aren't interested. That's my only thought, though. I mean, I don't see, being big is a skill. I wouldn't hate it every now and again. We just haven't seen it.
Yeah, no, and I mean, again, just it wasn't like it was that close at the end of the half. I think they were down by single-digit lead, but still, I mean, you don't trust him enough to put him in just a couple of minutes at the end of the first half. I don't know. That just seems a little odd, especially because at the end of the day, the guy's still a pro. He was still really good with the Kings. Not really sure what happened last season, why he just didn't get that many more minutes.
Yeah.
But again, I guess I digress. And then I was going to ask, with Omax not really getting a lot of playing time, I'm curious, do you think he's going to see a lot of Texas Legends minutes this season?
At this point, the fact that he hasn't gone down is kind of annoying, because what's he doing sitting on the bench? What is he learning? So I would rather, if they're not going to play him, then they need to figure out something. The problem is I think they already have 3 guys down there, because they got all 3 two-way guys down there. So that would be, I don't know though. I'm curious. I may see if I can get somebody to ask about that.
Yeah, that was kind of like something that I've noticed is just he doesn't seem to be getting a lot of minutes. And like you said, he's just sitting there on the bench. And I I know that he's getting time to practice with the NBA team versus the G League team. But at the end of the day, from a
They don't
developmental
practice that
standpoint,
much, though. There's film
exactly.
study and that sort of thing, but they don't practice. So I feel the same way.
And then I guess lastly, just Hardy making what seems to be a big leap in the first 7 games. He's become a little bit more aggressive on his scoring, and even tonight, just blocking. I forgot who he blocked tonight. That I was just kind of like, oh wow, that's a pretty big block. I wish I could remember off the top of my head who it was, but just again, I appreciate what Tim Hardaway Jr. has done for the team in the last few years. And I know that's something that a lot of people have brought up, just why he has such a big green light to just shoot and shoot and shoot. And again, it worked out really well for us tonight with him having that green light. But I've seen him play in a Mavs jersey long enough to know that there's more games than not. That's not the case. And I just keep seeing Hardy improving, and I'm just like, Hardy should be getting those minutes. Like, why is
Well,
he
but if Hardy's
not
going to
doing
get those minutes, then Hardy has to be willing to take those shots. That's the one thing that's hard, because it's like, I think these guys, you know, we laugh about this, but Tim has no shame. And I mean that in a positive way. Like, the ability to not give a shit and keep shooting is really rare, because it's like these guys, they get embarrassed when they miss stuff, but not him, not Tim.
No, and to his credit, man, like you said, like the dude doesn't. He's got like a mentality of a goldfish. Like he shoots and he'll miss 3 straight, and he'll go right next to the logo and make the next 3. And it's just like, how did you just have the confidence to go for that shot when you're not hitting anything tonight?
That's right. That's right. Sam, this is great. You got anything else?
That's all I have, man. I'll let you go.
Great questions. Thanks for coming up. We'll talk soon.
Thank
you. All right. So before I bring my man Krishna up on stage, if you could do me a favor, go ahead and hit the like button. If you're new here, if you somehow got here by the old search button, if this is presented to you in the YouTube algorithm and you don't know what the hell is going on here, go ahead and hit the subscribe button as well, because we do these after almost every game of the year. At least I try to. And when the Mavericks lose, sometimes that can be a little more entertaining, because we're all slightly bitchy, and this is much more fun than yelling at somebody on a message board or Twitter or Reddit or whatnot. Krishna, welcome to the show. What's going on?
Kirk, how are you?
Tired, but I'm good. What's up?
Yeah, congrats.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
I'm sure you're, like you said, you're very tired, I'm sure. So it's more than, I mean, it's a lot of effort. You got to be here. That's like, I'm sure you're
so where this is going to kill me is like the various child sleep regressions. Like that's a real thing where all of a sudden they just wake up in the middle of the night and they're like, time to go. But not yet. We're good. We're good.
And then it's like, you don't know what they want. Like, you're like, come on, just tell me what you want.
That's right.
Tell me what you want.
Right. Yeah. And what my child will say is, I want Dallas Mavericks victories.
I want all Dallas team victories, but I guess that's not always in the cards. But, you know, I think it's interesting. This team is just like a bunch of memes, right? Josh Bowe posted a meme where it's like the buff dog. And then it's like the sad little Doge dog, and it's like second half Mavericks, first half Mavericks. It's like that horribly drawn horse is the first half Mavericks, and that beautiful horse is the second half Mavericks. That's what this team is. It's a bunch of memes. And you know what? I wouldn't have it any other way. You wouldn't be 6-1 without it. And I think, to me, you can take it both ways, right? It's still frustrating that this team doesn't come out to good starts at all. And I think that's more on the defensive side than the offensive end of the ball. Really, it always feels frustrating when we don't make baskets, because we're not stopping anything on the other end. But then simultaneously, this team comes out in this second half and holds Orlando to 36 points. Now, yes, you can always put quantifiers, right? Like they were missing some guys, whatever, but Orlando just dropped 60 in that other half, and then you held them to 36. Like, clearly it's not like Orlando had no penchant to score. It's clear that you had an ability to defend for at least 2 quarters. And so it's kind of frustrating in that sense, but it's also positive, because at least this team is not going down into 14, like down 14 into a half and going like, okay, it's over. We're just giving up, which is what it felt like a lot last season, where if Luka and Kyrie really weren't at the top of their game, this team just felt like it gave up. And I think it's kind of a good mix of veterans and young players, which is something I feel like we've not really ever had as long as Luka has been here. It feels like this team has been much
2020 was
older.
2019-20 was good, but I know what you mean.
Yeah, but I mean, like now you've got like 3-4 guys who are younger than Luka, right? But you've also got a decent number of guys who are still older than Luka. And like that's what you kind of want. You don't like the past 2 years where we've really been, quote unquote in contention. Like that's what we were trying to do. Most of the guys have been older than Luka. And it's not to say you could never have guys older than your superstars or guys over 30, but you just don't want your entire team made up of that, because at the end of the day, like you need the energy and like the bounce back of youth, but you need the experience of veterans. It's why they always talk about like when you have tanking teams or like teams that are bottom feeders, like, oh, you want that veteran experience. It's kind of the same like for contenders. Like I know last season a lot of people made fun of the Nuggets having Jeff Green, but Jeff Green came up big for the Nuggets in the finals and in some moments for them. Like you just never know what players are going to be important for what team. And I think that's what's good. And you talked about it a little earlier with your first guess, like what should the Mavs do? I think it's interesting. Like I think the Mavs could make moves and probably should, but even if they don't, I'm not necessarily looking at this and saying it's a failure if they don't make any moves, because I think after this season we then have 2 first round picks, right? If the fingers crossed the next pick qualifies, right? The next pick qualifies, and that's something else you can trade, and you have a decent number of players that I think teams would be willing to take on, which I think is good. And yeah, like this person points out, I think a lot of the things with Grant coming into the season, I don't think it was wrong to think like worry about what he would be on this team. But and I tweeted about this, if you just don't play a lot of minutes and you get thrown into the playoffs, like in a high pressure situation like the Eastern Conference Finals was, who is going to be good in that situation? Like unless you're a superstar, there are very few players that are going to be good in that situation. And I think to me, there was more evidence that he can be a decent player, a contributing player on a team the season prior under Udoka, where he just played a lot more minutes. And so Grant has been a great like I can't look at this season and say any acquisition has been bad, which is I think is a miracle. It's a miracle. We've never said that.
I like that take. That's a good one.
I mean, yeah, I think like we're looking at guys like Omax now, right? And we're looking at Rashawn Holmes and we're saying like, oh, they're not contributing, why are they not there? One, we just don't ever really know the entire situation of, how players acclimating and, what the situations are. But I think with Omax, it's just like the guy is still young, like relatively in his basketball career, right? Like the role you're asking Omax to play, I think he still has a lot more to reach than someone like Lively, right? I think the initial thing is everyone wants to compare, oh, like Lively's already like playing, he's already contributing, getting these minutes, but you think about the role Lively has to play versus the role Omax has to play. Omax has to be 3-and-D. I think he could defend still well. I think he's still prone to obviously getting jumped and, maybe not out physical, but he doesn't necessarily have all the defensive know-how. But I think he could reach that sooner than later. But you think about his offensive game, that's just not what it was when he was at Marquette, right? I believe it was Marquette.
Yeah.
And he was just not a shooter. And that's something you have to develop, and it takes time. Now, I think if you want to compare it to someone who was on the team like Dorian, where he's ahead of someone like Dorian is just that he's got a higher like floor, a higher talent level. And so I think it's always like we want to get things right now. And I don't think it's wrong. I don't think it's wrong for people to want the Mavericks to go and make an aggressive trade and do this. But so it's like a balancing act, right? Like it's very positive. The Mavs are 6-1 and, we want to see us go and be aggressive, but it's kind of also like you need to see what other teams are doing. Like you just don't know what teams are going to struggle. Like I think I'd be interested, like you pointed out, Clint Capella, like if the Timberwolves are really biting at it and they're just struggling, why can't you go get Naz Reid? Like that is a shocking signing to me. If you're asking me of all the shocking signings this offseason, it's not that I think Naz Reid is a bad player, but they have 3 pretty good centers and 2 of them just don't fit together at all. So I think center is one. Obviously wing, I think you could easily use a wing on this team, but I'm not necessarily like super concerned which feels weird. It feels like we haven't been able to say that for these past 2 years, that I'm not concerned about this team.
Pretty nice, huh?
Yeah, it's very, very nice. I mean, it's frustrating that we have to sit through for like 24 minutes of basketball where we're all pulling our hair out. But then it's always nice when you can then watch the
Yeah,
next
but then
24
we'd be
minutes.
bored. Like I'd be bored
That's
after
true.
a while. This is
I
like
guess
being upset is part of the fun.
I don't get upset. I just go like, I know you can play better, and I don't want to walk away because I feel like
Sure.
this is going to get better. And then I end up walking away for like half the third quarter, and I come back and I'm like, of course, the team has come back at this point. But you know what? I wouldn't have it any other way. I really wouldn't. At least, like you said, it makes games fun. So I have a reason to watch them.
Right.
All right, Kirk.
All right, man.
Take care.
Thanks so much for hanging out.
Good night.
All right, talk soon. Let's see here. We got John. John, welcome to the show.
What's up, man? Oh, bless you.
Sorry, big sneeze, and I managed to hit the mute button beforehand. Well, just
That was a clutch move. That's a classic podcaster move.
That's right.
There.
That's right. What's going on?
Yeah, man, I've been able to watch the games on the side of like the Rangers and the Cowboys, just because it's been such an exciting time in Dallas sports, and it's been awesome that the vibes of the team when you're not just hanging on every single play are awesome. Like this team is good.
They are
like these last few games. For those of us that have just been locked in on the Dallas Mavericks for the last few years, it's so fun to watch a win like tonight, where just like this is a game that we would have lost.
Oh yeah.
Last year. Yeah. like I don't it would have sucked.
It was like a
And it
nails
just
on a
would've been-
chalkboard situation every time the Mavericks were playing a close game within 5 minutes, where it's like, how are they going to F this up? What bad thing is going to befall this team?
Yeah, and I'm now like those games that were, oh, this is close, we're gonna lose, are now like, oh, this is close, and I think we're gonna win.
That's right.
The real shift I hope that happens the next year or two is it's not even that close. Right?
They do need to start
that
beating teams more thoroughly, particularly teams that might be bad. But I'm still at the point of the year where I'm not willing to say any team that they've played yet is really bad. Chicago is like uninspiring, but they're not bad. They're just weird. Like there was a Zach LaVine story today that basically savaged him into dust and basically questioned his willingness to want to win over getting stats. And that's, the dude's almost 30. How old is Zach LaVine? Doesn't matter. He's been in the league a long time. And it's like, that can't be something you're getting asked at this point in your career. So,
yeah. Well, and also the NBA has changed where every team has a really player on the team. Like every team has a couple really good players that can go off at any given time.
That's right.
And to be able to work through that, to sustain that, to play a game where your top guys don't play that well and to win is really encouraging. Like I have just enjoyed watching these first few games, even the Nuggets loss, more than I enjoyed watching the Mavericks at all the last 2 seasons.
Sure.
Like it just.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
2022 was real fun. Let's be clear. From like February to May was awesome. But I know what you mean. Parts of it weren't particularly fun.
Yeah. Just like the thing that I worry about. And you mentioned earlier the thing that I'm worried about, and I thought that the first half of the first game, I immediately thought, oh, the Mavs need to go get another center because Lively is so good for what he like. Lively plus another center that's just a good, like serviceable NBA center would be great. But if he's out, we're in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is a ball handler. So Luka and Kyrie are going to miss a game together. Like at some point they're both who Kirk, who what does that look like? Who runs the offense? Who gets the ball across half court?
I still want to see some more things from this team. And I think they have the horses to do it. Whereas last year I was like, if any, we're really going to have to see Frank play point guard minutes. Like they sold us that. That was an option. And
Yeah.
That never should have been a thing. And this year I don't feel that way.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it'd be Dante Exum, but there was.
I believe in Exum. I do.
I do too. I think he can do it for a game or two, like if he has to. But there was something nice about in hindsight, Luka, Dinwiddie, Brunson, like Luka, Brunson, Dinwiddie, like that. You had those three guys that every minute you had someone to bring the ball, like, and those are my worries, but those are like secondary worries because the across the board talent is just so much better. Like the athleticism, this team is so much more fun to watch than last year.
Agree.
It is. Yeah, go get fun players and let them run and let them play. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I think that's about all I've got. But that's my question. My question for you as the Mavs Party guy. What do we do in the games that Kyrie and Luka are out?
We're going to see one of those,
like?
And I'm interested to see how they perform.
Yeah.
I think that Dante plays a lot. I think you see a very different offense, but I think that there's guys like Jaden Hardy, like Josh Green. If we're being perfectly candid, like I see all this Josh Green love year in and year out, or day in and day out. He's yet to have that like sublime offensive performance that he was having in the last 30 games last year. Maybe he'll do that if he gets some more opportunity. Like there's enough guys to where I think if one or both of the Mavericks sit, I'm interested in that. I don't necessarily think they'll win, but I will feel better than it was. You remember the Kemba Walker game against the Cavs? Like the Mavericks are doing that this year. Like who was
the guy they brought in from Europe for like 15 games last year?
The Argentinian guy, the Facu Campazzo. Like they're not doing that this year. So I feel better.
Yeah.
That's why I feel better.
Yeah. At least a game in which Hardy and Josh Green running things would be interesting.
Yeah, I would like to see it.
It would be fun if you have to do it out of necessity versus Campazzo that got off the plane from Spain. That is my worry, but it's a more fun worry because it is very enjoyable watching this team beat teams with lesser talent and then struggle against teams like Denver that have more talent, but to see where they're at. I'm enjoying this season.
Good. That's the point.
70,
we should enjoy it more.
It's so fun. It seems like they're doing it, and Lively is the real deal.
Oh yeah, he's great.
He's right. Yeah,
great.
Yeah. All right,
John,
man.
thanks for hanging out. What else you got?
I got nothing.
All right, come back. We'll talk soon.
All right, see you, dude.
Here's the funny part about this, and John just sort of vocalized that at the end. When they're winning, there's not as much to bitch about, so we don't have as much to talk about. And I would prefer to have that problem. I would prefer to have the I don't want to complain. I want to enjoy wins. But when there's less stuff to pick at because the Mavericks are just pretty good. Jared, what's going on?
Hello.
Hey, Jared, how you doing? Welcome back.
Hang on, I can't hear you. Put me back in the queue. I'll sort my audio out.
All right. We're going to go with John then. John, welcome to the show. Saw you pop in. What's going on tonight?
Okay, I just want to talk about this. This is fourth quarters from all the teams in the league. With like clutch time. Mavericks are number 1 in wins. Is that something? Or is that just because like I don't
volume?
Yeah.
It has to be something because we lost a billion of these last year. Like I think we lost like something like 25 to 30 clutch time games. I could go look this up, and I'm not gonna.
Yeah, that was ridiculous.
The being sick, like winning 6 clutch games is amazing. Full
And-
stop. Has to be.
Like it has to be something, especially like the way they played like this last year, and they're still playing the way that, like when it comes to clutch. But I feel like this year it's a little bit more tighter than it was last year.
Yeah.
And I was looking up like before, like after the game, like the fourth quarter stats from Mavs. Like, do you know Dwight Powell has the most fourth quarters points averaging
What, this season?
this season? Is Dwight Powell? I don't even understand.
I would need to go look this up because I know I will say that I do know that like Luka has not had a ton of fourth quarter scoring because he's been distributing the ball a little bit more, which is nice. He also, there's been a couple of times where if I'm being critical, he's kind of pouted as the Mavericks went ahead and pulled away, but that's neither here nor there. Kyrie's had some moments, but I guess not like a flurry of scoring. Whereas last year in clutch time, we would just see like Luka Kyrie, like that was it. That was all that happened, or just
exactly.
Luka.
So
yeah.
This year, like I feel like they're distributing the ball so well. Like it's more of like it's more passy than like, hey, take that shot just because you're open. Because like I see them like passing across the ball, and like sometimes like some of the plays, all 5 players touch the ball, and somehow it's still going to be made in the center.
Yeah. The thing that I'm liking the most is how many times late that Luka's getting doubled and finding other guys. That happened tonight where there was one play. I'm trying to remember who the center was. Might have been Grant Williams, but it was like Luka gets trapped up at the top left. Ball ends up in the middle of the floor near the free throw line. Ball goes underneath to somebody cutting from the top corner.
It's
and
Grant.
Then somebody passed to the far corner. And I don't even think they made the shot. Like it was
no,
a missed
it was
shot.
Derrick Jones. Derrick Jones was at the side. He got the ball. He was open. There was a slight contestant on that, but it wasn't too close. But he still missed the shot. And then they went back on to do the transition. But yeah. Like
that's awesome offense. That's awesome offense. I'm thrilled by stuff like that.
Even if they're not making it, at least they have the knowledge to understand. Like, hey,
the process
is good.
Yeah.
Yep. So. And then like, so far, like I feel like Mavs are just number 1 right now in fourth quarters. After Celtics lost tonight, they are now the 2nd in the league.
That's awesome.
Like, when was the last time can we say like the Mavs are 2nd in the league? I know it's just like 7 games in.
I don't care. Be happy.
Exactly.
This is great.
And we're right there behind the champions. And like
right.
I'm not gonna say like we're gonna make the championship, whatever, but I do see the possibility of them being into at least like the finals and stuff. Like conference finals, definitely, like into the finals, definitely, just because like they are yelling a lot more on the court. They are like telling each other where to go. No one's like standing still unless it's like you're like, even Timmy's not just sitting like on the corner or on the wing. Like you can see him like try to move and stuff like that. But his defense is still a little bit like flaky. He looks like what do you call that? He looks like a chicken without a head, and like he's just like running around in circles. So he doesn't even know like where he's going. But like, I'm glad that everybody else know where they're at.
That's right.
And
you can get away with that one guy being crazy if everybody else knows their job.
Exactly. But no, I just feel like some fans just need to just tone down. Like Kyrie's coming off an injury, and like he's still able to do all the stuff. And like in a matter of time, like I just feel like he's gonna get back to like last year's fourth quarter. Luka it looks like he's not taking as many shots as he would before. He's passing a lot more, and like the team just looks a lot more solid. Like there's a lot of like faults, but I don't think fans should start nitpicking like every little thing.
Oh, I mean we're gonna, but we shouldn't.
Yeah. But for now, I just feel like everybody should just enjoy it. Enjoy like right there behind the Nuggets. Like
that's right.
Enjoy it, and like we're gonna have our ups and downs. We're gonna get another a loss some way somehow from maybe a good team, bad team. Who fucking knows? But like, hey.
Yep. This has been good. It's a much better way to start the season. John, thanks so much for joining. Good stats.
Thank you, Kurt.
All right, we're gonna bring Jared back on. He figured out his audio. Jared, what's up?
Hey, not a lot yourself.
Not too much. What's going on tonight?
A couple of things that you talked about earlier. G League doesn't start until Thursday for you, I think. So I
Yeah,
assume Max will go down. But he's actually older than most people think. He's older than Jaden Hardy.
Mhm.
He's
He was a
already
senior.
21.
Yeah, he's what? He's 22. Maybe is he like 23? He's older.
He's 21 still, but he'll turn 22 during the season, I believe. And Josh Green's still only 22.
Right.
Like a lot has been said about Josh Green, but I think the Mavs don't use him all that well. Like realistically, he's a player like Jose Alvarado. He should be playing defending point guard, playing the wing on offense.
So it's almost 11 o'clock at night, East American time. I can tell the chat this now because nobody's going to hear this outside the people in the room. So we have a post going up tomorrow, written by a woman who writes for our site that basically theorizes why Josh isn't playing or starting, and it focuses on his inability to get over screens.
Yeah,
and I didn't really buy the pitch until I read the story. And then I read the story and I'm like, okay, this seems like a thing that Jason Kidd and company would really harp on, because if you're already playing with Luka and Kyrie, two other guys who aren't great defenders, you need somebody else who can really, really help be a point of attack defender. So I think if Josh ever figures that one out, and like you said, he's young, then that will be a point where he plays more minutes. I'm looking forward to seeing him in one of these games where like Luka or Kyrie doesn't play, because he'll be forced to take more shots. And he's a good offensive player. He just gets a little in his own head sometimes. Drives me nuts.
Yeah, he's definitely very confidence driven. You can tell when he's playing well. Like he goes on little streaks where he plays really well. But yeah, defensively he has been struggling this season to get over screens, but that's not consistent through his career. Like he was reasonable at it last season. He was really good at it for Australia in FIBA. Yeah, so I don't know, but this season he's got stuck on a lot of screens. He's going underneath when he should be going over the top.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much of that is assignment driven too, because there was a lot of possessions tonight where he started off guarding Paolo, and that's about the worst matchup on our team.
Right. So that's a great point, and something I kind of keep talking about. And I ended up being disdainful to Josh, and I don't mean to, but it's like, why are you putting the 6'4" guy on the 6'9" guy? That happens a lot.
It's like they pre-switch. They expect teams to run pick and roll, and they intend to switch those pick and rolls, so they start off with mismatches. But Paolo just took the ball, went down on the block, and scored. And
right, Paolo has amazing.
Green got in foul trouble easy.
Paolo has amazing ball skills. It's so they need to chill out with that sort of stuff. I don't understand that.
Yeah, especially those possessions where Grant Williams and Derek Jones Jr. are both on the court and they're starting the possession off with Josh Green on Paolo. It's like he's the worst player that was on the court outside of Kyrie to be guarding Paolo. Like you'd even put Luka on him. At least he's not going to push Luka around.
That's right.
But the other big thing that looks positive is that the Mavs are plus 87 in the second half this season. The fact that we're minus 42 in the first half is obviously not good, but yeah, finishing games off well is not something we did last season. So yeah, very positive to be finishing games like we are.
I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, it's been fun to watch, unlike last season where
that's right.
We didn't win any of these games. So
all right. Well, thank you so much for closing us out.
No worries. Have a good night.
All right. Talk soon. All right, guys. I'll try to be back on Wednesday night. If I have different backgrounds now, everybody knows why. With we're still getting. It's going to be several weeks until Kid is acclimated, maybe even months. But I do this part time, and so I will be probably different degrees of quality, different degrees of sanity. But I'll try to do as many of these shows as possible. Everybody, thank you so much for hanging out. Please consider liking the stream and subscribing to the show and checking out MavsMoneyball.com, where we will have a lot going on tomorrow. Everybody have a good night. We'll talk soon. Go Mavs.